Hey everybody, it's Matt here. Hey, excuse the background noise. I'm at an airport in transit, but I really wanted to get this one out. And so this is the audio that sits behind Ideas as Objects, the newsletter that I'm sending out this week. There's a ton of paths towards awareness, from different contemplative traditions to systems thinking, somatic sensing, and they all share a common insight. And that insight is that we're not our thoughts, and we are not the situation we're in. And developing perspective often means that one creates a psychological distance between the observer and the observed. And this is a move that shows up again and again. It's described differently in different disciplines, but it's pointing to the same shift. And I thought that this is really relevant to running a black belt practice, a commercially successful practice as a thought leader, and doing so in a way that's consciously led. The team behind me are having a lot of fun, so I hope you're enjoying their background noise. I thought I might touch on three that kind of reference into the same idea. The first is internal family systems, or IFS, as developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz. And it offers one of the most accessible and modern frames for navigating this kind of inner distancing, if you like. And at its core, IFS assumes that we're not a singular, solid self. Instead, we're kind of made up of parts, each with a role, a voice, and a story. And awareness in this model is the ability to observe these parts with curiosity and not collapse into them as identity. So you are all of your parts. You contain multitudes. The second might be Professor Ethan Kross's work as published in his book Chatter, which speaks to the everyday utility of psychological distancing. And he calls out a really simple tactic. He says, talk to yourself in the third person. And it's kind of a small linguistic move that can return to you a sense of agency when self-talk, like anxiety and stuff, gets really, really noisy. So rather than saying, why can't I get this right, you might try, why is Ethan or Matthew struggling with this right now? And that naming helps restore a little of the air between you and the emotion. Once again, this sort of idea of space, that you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are the one who's experiencing them. And the third sort of speaks more directly to that is the Buddhist practice. I love the work and teachings of Pema Chodron, and we're reminded through her work that space is not just a mental construct, it's also a compassionate one. There's a discipline called Tonglen, which might be, for example, the practice is to breathe in the suffering others and then breathe out relief as if you're healing it. I don't know if you've seen the end of Green Mile where all the butterflies come out of him. It's sort of, I feel like that when I'm practicing Tonglen. And it may sound counterintuitive, but it's a move of radical connection. You learn to hold pain without collapsing into it, to stay with suffering, not by merging or fixing it, but by expanding your capacity to include it. In this way, psychological distance, this third way, becomes a loving presence. It's not cold detachment, but warm spaciousness. And Pema often teaches that you are the sky. Everything else, it's just the weather. And that's the move. Instead of becoming the storm and getting caught up in emotions and feelings, you witness it. You become the one who can hold it. And this links to metta meditation, that's metta with two T's, which is the Buddhist practice of extending loving kindness in like widening circles from self to friend to stranger to enemy. And you don't do this by fusing with their experiences. You do it by kind of recognizing that you can care from a place of inner stillness without getting caught up in their storm. And this is kind of the bit towards business school and thought leaders. Years ago, I created a really simple but powerful process for abstracting ideas. It's now core to our business school and the curriculum that we teach in our foundation program, and we call it the Pink Sheet. It helps experts turn like lived and learned experience into commercial intellectual property. And while it began as a visual thinking tool, over time it became something more. It became a method for creating useful distance from our own expertise. And this move, being able to stand apart from what you're in, it's both strategic and spiritual, right? In leadership literature, it was captured in the metaphor, The Balcony and the Dance, which was a paper released in 2002 by Ronald Heifetz and Donald Laurie. It was published in the Harvard Business Review, and they put it this way: the only way to gain both a clearer view of reality and some perspective on the bigger picture is to get off the dance floor and onto the balcony. It's the same insight that the phrase, you can't see the forest for the trees. And the implication being, change your vantage point and you'll see what's really going on. So in Think, which is the book I wrote about the structure of a pink sheet and how ideas can be held, shaped and delivered, you can download that, by the way, from my website. And in that book and in the business school, we work with IP assets using 3 core lenses. And this is sort of how this idea of subject-object separation plays out. The first is sort of as an application. Where did the idea first arise? Like, what context brought it to life? And most ideas are born in a specific situation, like a market context, like real estate, parenting, banking, education, or they emerge through a delivery mode, like a speech, an article, or a workshop. But if you capture it well, you can apply it elsewhere. And that's how you scale delivery without losing depth. So do your pink sheets. The second is abstraction, and this is about working top down. You want to start with the insight, the governing idea, the meta frame, and then drop into examples. When you begin bottom up, your ideas often stay stuck to their source, but when you build top down, you unlock range and transferability. So begin with the context and then work down through meaning and into the content or the matter. So if application is one and abstraction is another, the third way you use pink sheets is stacking, which is don't chase novelty for its own sake. Many strong ideas are reframes, they're refinements, or they're rediscoveries. And originality sits further up the value stack. So before you get there, pass through, is this idea relevant? Does it have utility? Is it thorough? Have I done my literature review? Is it elegant? Have I joined the dots and synthesized knowledge before I look for uniqueness? Because if you stack value, uniqueness often emerges as a byproduct. So shifting perspective is not just a mental trick. I think it's a foundational leadership move. And for those of us in the business of thinking clearly and serving powerfully, I think it's like a really important thing to focus on.